Hello everyone, and welcome back to the 3T Path channel, and welcome back to our Uddhava-gita course. Now we're going through this chapter where Krishna is describing to Uddhava how to achieve spiritual perfection following the Varnashrama system. Because the Varnashrama system is a Vedic traditional structure of society. It's not something that's only available to yogis or only available in special, more advanced texts like the Bhagavad Purana or, even Mahabharata, other texts. It's something that's right there, right at the core of the culture. It's a traditional part. It's the very, part of the Vedas. So it's right there. So he's using this return to the basics. Uddhava is saying, what about, with the basics, how would somebody achieve perfection? So you have to view these two chapters, this chapter and the chapter before, in light of that, how to use the Varnashrama system, which is supposedly for everyone in society, how to see that as a path to spiritual perfection. And now, we've gone through a lot, we've seen the different stages of brahmachari, the student, the grihastha, the married life. We saw vanaprastha, those who would leave for the forest, but still with some structure to their lives, with a little cabin at least, and they could go with their wives, etc. And now we're going through the sannyas, and this is the one who's completely abandoned everything. So this one, the last verse we saw, had a beautiful line, traveling the earth alone. So this is the image of the complete renunciant, traveling the earth alone. And we're going to have some more beautiful verses about that. But again, in all these things I've been telling you, maybe you can't do the whole thing. Obviously, we really can't follow these details today, we really won't just go live in a forest. We're not equipped for that. We don't know. We wouldn't survive 3 days. Just leave your house and take your wife and can you imagine you go to your local forest, if you live like I do in the UK, or if you live in Europe, or even the US, go to the forest and build a house there and live in the forest without ever going to town and shopping and everything. We wouldn't, we don't know how to do that. So even though we can't do all the details or travel the earth alone, you can't travel the earth alone anymore with nothing, just with a staff and a little water pot. You can't do that. You'll be arrested. You can't even, the authorities won't let you. Certainly won't be able to cross any borders with a staff and a water pot, without ID and passport and visas and money and all this stuff. So it won't work. But there's all these concepts and ideas which we definitely can bring into our lives. So it's been very useful. These verses have had beautiful instructions that we can definitely apply to our lives. And there's some really beautiful instructions coming up now, which I have applied, and I highly recommend you do too. So here we are. And of course, if you want to watch all the previous classes, make sure you become a member of this channel. Join the Bhakti Club, become a member of this channel, and then you can go to Uddhava-gita.com, where you can see the whole course once you become a member of this channel. Okay, so we're in the 11th canto, 18th chapter, verse 21. Dwelling in a safe and solitary place, Krishna continues to tell Uddhava, his mind purified by constant thought of me. The sage should concentrate on the soul alone, realizing it to be non-different from me. So this is one of the practical part, the actual practice of dwelling in a safe and solitary place. So maybe right now you can't dwell in a solitary place. So I hope you are dwelling in a safe place, but maybe you can't dwell in a solitary place. But we can certainly, all of us, can and should do the rest of the verse. His mind purified by constant thought of me. So of course, constant thought of Krishna is the practice. In Bhagavad-gita, over and over again, Krishna says, always think of me. Or he'll say, mind and intelligence fixed on me. So you see that come up again and again. Mind fixed on me, mind and intelligence fixed on me, always thinking of me. So that's the general, that's the high standard. That's what we're going for. That's the gold standard of yoga practices. You have your mind always thinking of Krishna. So, with mind purified by constant thought of me, the sage should concentrate on the soul. So that means like, think soul, think spirit. And this is something, again, that you can do with your life. You can be going about your life, going to your job and driving in traffic and taking your kids to school. And, go shopping and working and dealing with taxes. You can do all that stuff. Always dwelling on your soul. Always understanding, seeing it. This is called a mental map. In modern language, it just means like the way you're seeing reality is within this map where your soul, you're an eternal spiritual being, and you're always in thought of Krishna. So these things we all have to do. If you don't do this, you're gonna reincarnate over and over again until you do. So you might as well get it right now. So you have to come to this point where you're fully living, seeing, experiencing life, aware of your nature as soul, and in constant thought of Krishna. And then he says, realizing it to be non-different from me. So this is a great topic, like soul, God, what's the relationship? This is a huge topic of Vedanta. What we're doing here is called, technically, this is all Vedanta, because it's the advanced stage of the Vedas. The knowledge of the self is the advanced state of the Vedas. So yoga and Bhagavad-gita, this is all Vedanta. This is all the spiritual philosophies of Vedanta. So what's the relationship between soul and God? So there's there's a whole history, a whole fascinating intellectual history. If you go back over 1,000 years, about 1,300 years, starting with Shankar, like these discussions, like what's the relation between soul and God? Are they like the same, absolutely the same? This is what Shankar said, like how monism is called. It's like, there's no difference. There's no such thing as God or soul. It's just the one thing. And then in other people say, no, that's completely wrong. Because of course, if it was just the one thing, then you wouldn't have the relationship, you wouldn't have bhakti, it all falls apart. So not just say, was it completely different? So they have this other Advaita. Is it kind of similar but kind of different? So like this, so the great acharyas have discussed this. And what we follow is the perfect conclusion that was solidified by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is that we are achintya bheda bheda, which means inconceivably the same and different at the same time. What does that mean? We're the same in nature. We're both conscious. We're both non-material. We're both feeling, thinking, individual beings. So God and soul, we're the same in that sense. We have all these things in common. Consciousness, individuality, emotions, all these things. Free will, decision. We have all these things, rationality. But we're different because we're separate. Because God is the source of everything. God is infinite and we're infinitesimal. So the same and different at the same time, which is then, that's why the achintya word means like inconceivable. Like is it the same or is it different? It's both. How can something be both the same and different? So that's where the inconceivable comes in. Well, you have to understand. You have to receive the knowledge. Achintya doesn't mean that it's inconceivable, that you'll never figure it out. As my spiritual master loves to point out, it means that you can figure it out with help. You can receive the information. You wouldn't have figured it out otherwise. So now that you're receiving the knowledge, then it's like, oh, okay. It's perfectly clear. It's not inconceivable anymore, but at first it may seem inconceivable. So you have to receive the knowledge. Okay, very good. Purport. One who is engaged exclusively in the devotional service of the Lord in one of the 5 principal relationships is to be known as a pure Vaishnava. And of course, the 5, here we're talking about the rasas. It's an advanced topic, we're not going to get into it now. Because of his advanced stage of love of Godhead, a pure devotee is able to constantly chant the glories of the Lord without material hindrance. He is not interested in anything except Lord Krishna and never considers himself to be qualitatively different from the Lord. So they use this word, qualitatively different. Quality, same quality. Conscious, person, thinking, feeling. So quality, the same. Quantity, totally different. Again, God infinite, you're infinitesimal. So that's how they use this qualitatively the same, quantitatively different. So, one who is still attracted by the gross material body and subtle material mind, which cover the eternal soul, continues to see himself as different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This misconception is due to false identification with matter. Of course, this is the root issue of the whole blockage to spiritual perfection. It's identification with matter. That's why the first thing Krishna teaches in Bhagavad-gita, you're not the body. And he just spends 20 verses saying the same thing in different ways and explaining it and proving it and showing it, because that's the issue. We're identified with the body, then your spiritual life gets blocked, gets suspended, until you understand that, no, I'm not the body, I am soul. With senses purified of material contamination, one must serve the Lord, who is the master of all senses, and thus one's devotional service is considered free from discrepancy. One who ignores the injunctions of Vedic literatures uselessly wastes his sense activity in illusory material activities. He falsely considers himself to be different from Lord Krishna and therefore imagines that he possesses an interest independent of the Lord's interest. There is no possibility that such a person can achieve steadiness in life because the material field of action is constantly being shuffled and transformed by the disturbing influence of time. If a devotee begins to cultivate an interest apart from the loving service of the Lord, his meditation on his oneness with the Lord will be disturbed and overturned. When the mind deviates from the lotus feet of the Lord, the duality of material nature again becomes prominent within the mind. And one resumes a work program based on the 3 modes of material nature. So very interesting. Like once you lose this steady focus on Krishna, on spirituality, on your connection, on bhakti, then naturally you're going to go back to the gunas, the 3 modes, duality, and then you're just back in the whole karmic cycle. One who is not fixed in one's own relationship with the Supreme Lord cannot be fearless or steady and is deprived of the shelter of Lord Krishna. Therefore, one should seriously contemplate, as described in this verse, one's identity as a small particle of consciousness, not different from the Supreme Consciousness, Lord Krishna. Thus, one should remain steady in Krishna consciousness. Very nice. Okay, verse 22. By steady knowledge, a sage should clearly ascertain the nature of the soul's bondage and liberation. Bondage occurs when the senses are deviated to sense gratification. And complete control of the senses constitutes liberation. So this is a very important talk. It comes up over and over again. Control of the senses. What does that mean? That means that you have a guiding principle and you stick with it. That means you control the senses. If you do not have a guiding principle at all, then you're already lost. Or even if you have a principle you'd like to have, but you can't stick to it, then you're still in bondage. So for example, we have a guiding principle, Dharma. Dharma and Bhakti, those are the guiding principles that Krishna teaches, that I teach, that I follow in my life. Dharma and Bhakti, so that's the guiding principle. Now, I have to be able to practice those two. I have to be able to stick to my Dharma and stick to Bhakti, because it's nice having the goal of Dharma and Bhakti. I mean, already it's like great step forward if you do understand that those should be your guiding principles, but then we have to actually follow it. Because what would drag me away from Dharma and Bhakti? What drags anybody away from anything? Arjuna asks Krishna about that in Bhagavad-gita. And what does Krishna say? Kama esha, krodha esha, rajaguna. He says it's kama and krodha because of rajaguna. So kama means just sense gratification is used here. Just like you just have a desire, you just want to do it. Just like, you shouldn't do it, but you just, I just felt like doing it. You just wanted it. You know, it wasn't appropriate, it wasn't correct, it wasn't legal, I just wanted to do it. It's a problem, right? You can't just do things because you want to do them. You have to do things that are correct. You can do things that you want within the boundaries of Dharma, or even just, within the boundaries of the laws of society, right? You can't just like, no, I just felt like driving at 150 miles an hour here. It was fun, and then you killed someone, and then you crashed your car, and then you were arrested for speeding. You can't just do it, but I just wanted to do it. No, you have to control your senses. I know you want to speed, it's kind of fun, but you can't do it. You can't just, I got angry at that, thing. I just want to trash that store because I didn't like, you can't do it. You have to control your senses. So, control of your senses, then you can do whatever you want with your life, because now you're the master of yourself. You're Swami. Swami means master of your oneself. So you see this over and over again. Whenever there's a good devotee, a good yogi, the definition, complete control over his senses. Always complete. So that's the thing we have to work on, complete control. And it's easier to work on those when you are in Sattva Guna. Krishna says, Kama esha, krodha esha, rajoguna. When you're in rajas, then you get angry. Then you, with tamas, you get angry. See, krodha, anger, desires from rajaguna. Anger is from tamaguna. But if you strive to maintain a life in sattva-guna, then it's much easier to control your senses. That's why everything fits together. Purport: by carefully understanding one's eternal nature, one will not again be bound up in the shackles of material energy. And by constant engagement in the service of the Absolute Truth, God, one is liberated. Then the flickering material senses can no longer drag one into the false consciousness of being a material enjoyer. Such a steady sense control gives one relief from the harassment of material sense gratification. Very nice. Verse 23. Therefore, completely controlling the five senses and the mind by Krishna consciousness, a sage having experienced spiritual bliss within the self should live detached from insignificant material sense gratification. So once you've experienced this higher taste, once you got it, you just, even the glimmer, like, oh, yes. Krishna calls this the higher taste in Bhagavad-gita chapter 2. When you just got this little, yes. I hope you're all gotten it, or you're about to get it. If you're watching this, you're the kind of person who's about to get it, or gotten it already. So once you've gotten this glimpse of this higher taste, this taste of the spiritual bliss within the self. That's what we're experiencing. It's hard to tell the people about it. They're like, can't see it, So how do I know it's true? It's like, it's hard to convince other people that it exists. But we all experience it, and then people do it, and they experience it, and they're like, hey, this is really good. And it's hard to, people don't believe it's because it doesn't exist for them. They've never had it. I mean, how do you describe aromas to a creature who never smelled anything? How do you describe it? How do you describe vision to, a whole civilization of blind people? Never considered seeing anything, never thought of seeing it, never considered it. It's hard. It's like it's a different thing that you don't experience. But once you have that, then you're set. Then, of course, you know what you want. You want more of that. So then you're not going to fall into the kama. Just kind of whatever the senses, material stuff. Those material pleasures now are lesser. You know that they're lesser. That's what Krishna says, higher taste. So you don't dedicate yourself to those things anymore. You're fixed in the higher standards. Okay, verse 24. The sage should travel in sanctified places, by flowing rivers, and within the solitude of mountains and forests. He should enter the cities, towns, and pasturing grounds, and approach ordinary working men only to beg for his bare sustenance. So this is a wonderful thing. So Krishna is saying, don't even go to cities. Don't go to villages. Don't even approach people who are still in that low, just work, no spiritual vision, just mundane, just work and have fun, and that kind of mundane mentality. Just don't even. Instead, nature. Enjoy this solitude. This is beautiful solitude. Enjoy the bliss, the spiritual bliss in solitude, in nature. It's wonderful. And now, again, like I said, okay, maybe we can't just walk around like this for the rest of our lives. Maybe we're not going to be, we can't just go into cities to beg for food. That'd be really disgusting these days anyway, because people eat disgusting stuff anyway. Even when they get it fresh, it's already disgusting and unhealthy. And then can you imagine begging for it? It wouldn't be good. It wouldn't work well, begging for food in cities and villages these days, and pretty much the whole world. Right? I mean, can you imagine get a half-eaten Big Mac? It's oh my God. it's it's disgusting. So a half-drunk Coca-Cola is the stuff is just poison. So it wouldn't work well. But the concept here, and I can tell you about this concept, being alone in nature. I did this a lot. Right? If you know me more, I used to live in Pandava's paradise. I had this huge yoga resort in the center of Brazil, in a beautiful area of natural preservation. I had 1,000 acres. And around my 1,000 acres, there was almost nobody when I got there. When I first got there, I was the only person there. Literally. The closest human being was kilometers away. And I would spend a lot of time there. Just in nature. There was literally mountain and a flowing river. I would go down and do my japa meditation right next to this little brook. Just sit there, just doing japa. Of course, the creatures were there, snakes. Sometimes oh my God, a snake's got me and I'm doing japa. Just trust Krishna. And the snake would go away. So just alone. At night, wolves howling. Sometimes you'd hear a wolf howling at night. total darkness, no lights to be seen. This was a while back. Now it's all built up. It's gone. But a while back it was like that. I was alone there. So, and it's just so wonderful. And I was doing nothing. I was doing everything Krishna said in these verses. I was contemplating the nature of illusion. I was always trying to think of Krishna. I was thinking of my soul. I was, of course, I'm not like a perfect sage, like they may, but I was working on it. I was mostly thinking always of my spiritual self, and mostly always thinking of Krishna. In solitude, silence. It's wonderful. So if you can do it, I highly recommend this. It just works really well. And I would go into town. I wouldn't have, I wouldn't beg for food. I would just go into town to buy food. But this works really well. Wonderful practice. Just being on your own. Solitude is so wonderful. I mean, I love being on my own. It's so wonderful because when you're on your own, you're actually with Krishna fully. You can be fully with Krishna on your own because then you're not distracted by social, other people's minds. Because, people have their minds and they have to be dealt with. So you don't have to worry about other people's minds. It's just your mind and Krishna. So then if you can just calm your mind down a little bit, then it's just your transcendental pure self with Krishna. And this is a most wonderful, blissful feeling. So this is a great instruction, and I had the good fortune to be able to practice, and I highly recommend you do so too. Purport. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, the word Pura refers to cities and towns with shopping centers, markets, and other commercial enterprises, whereas Grama refers to smaller towns lacking such facilities. The Vanaprastha or sannyasi trying to become free from sense gratification, free from material attachment, should avoid those who are working day and night for sense gratification, approaching them only to engage them in the necessary acts of charity. Those who are preaching Krishna consciousness all over the world are understood to be liberated souls, and therefore they constantly approach the materialistic living entities to engage them in the devotional service of Lord Krishna. However, even such preachers should strictly avoid contact with the materialistic world when not actually necessary for advancing the mission of Krishna consciousness. The injunction is that one should not deal unnecessarily with the materialistic world. So this is a great injunction. It really works. The less you have, less time you spend dealing with low consciousness people, with people who are just on like an animal, materialistic, mundane basis, the better. The less involvement, the better. Just be, cultivate this solitude, this connection. Or, if you're lucky enough, you can find somebody, satsang, hang out with people, at least but this connection is wonderful. Always there in different traditions as well. Wonderful to connect with God in solitude, especially in nature. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoy that and have the rest of your day with lots of peace and lots of love.